Hey everyone. I've gotten some questions about assignment 1 and getting started on part 2 in particular. So if you've completed part 1 and you have no idea how to get started on part 2, here's a couple of tips to try to help you get started. First, in part 1, you've created a bunch of parsers that read in a string and then try to parse some meaningful thing at the beginning of that string. You've also created 3 parser combinators, that is, the functions either, both, and star, which take in parsers and then return new parsers. So of course these are higher order functions. Intuitively, either takes in a string and then tries to apply the first parser to the string. And if it works, great, and if it doesn't, it tries the second parser. What both does is it takes in a string, and then it applies the first parser, and then the second parser. And finally, star takes in a string, and tries to apply the same parser as many times as it can before reaching an error. Keep this in mind, because if you understand these 3 operations, you'll be able to chain them together effectively when doing part 2. Here's a simple example. While in part 1, you were able to parse an HTML tag, in part 2, you need to be able to parse a tag where the name could be anything. So this is a good place to start. Can you write a parser which just parses an open tag, where inside this could be any name that does not contain whitespace or special characters? And here's how you should be thinking about approaching this problem. If you want to parse this whole string, what you need to look for is first parsing this character, then parsing any non-empty, non-white, and non-special character containing identifier, and then parsing a close bracket. First, make sure that you can do each part individually, and then try to chain them all together using some combination of these functions. So let's say you've gotten that working. So now you have an open tag parser. Well, the next logical thing to do is be able to parse strings where you first get an open tag parser, and then you get the corresponding close tag parser. This one requires a bit more work, because whatever you want to parse from the closing tag, this name has to match what comes here. To do this most elegantly, you have to think carefully about what it is you want the parser that parses open tags to actually return as its data. Because whatever it returns, that's what you should be able to use for this parser. After you've gotten these 2 steps down, it's a matter of making your parser handle more and more complex situations. A natural place to start is when you have some open tag, and then some text, and then the corresponding close tag. And remember that this is one of the 2 forms an HTML element can take. The other being an open tag, the corresponding close tag, and then arbitrary nesting of other HTML elements. And by the way, the contents in here, I'm going to say this phrase carefully, there could be an arbitrary number of the same structure, an arbitrary number of HTML elements. Which one of your parsers can handle that? And finally, to give you another hint, these are the 2 forms an HTML element can take. An HTML element with text or with nested elements. If you want to parse an HTML element, you have to be able to parse either this or this. That was my hint. Thanks for watching and have a great day.